Jonathan Harris was an IT security analyst at a small but respected cybersecurity firm in Boston. He was one of those people who blended into the background, often going unnoticed in the bustling office. He wore simple suits, preferred spending evenings at his computer, and wasn't particularly interested in socializing. However, his skills in cybersecurity were exceptional, and he had made a name for himself as a master at detecting threats. One day, Jonathan was assigned to investigate some unusual activity on the server of a major client, a media conglomerate that owned several news outlets across the country. At first glance, it seemed like a routine case, a standard scan and analysis to identify potential vulnerabilities. But as Jonathan dug into the logs and traffic, he noticed something strange. The data being transmitted through certain IP addresses didn't match any known threat patterns. Moreover, these addresses were disguised as legitimate traffic, but they all led to an unknown server in a remote location that was difficult to trace. Jonathan decided to investigate further and realized that this server wasn't just handling data, it seemed to be controlling certain aspects of the media company's operations. Every article published on the websites went through this server, and some were even automatically edited before publication. It looked like controlled censorship or information manipulation. He immediately reported his findings to his boss, but the response was unexpected. "Don't get involved, John. You don't understand what you're messing with." This wasn't like his usually straightforward boss, who was always focused on problem solving. This incident made Jonathan decide to take matters into his own hands. He continued his investigation in secret, not telling anyone else at the company. The next day, he worked from home, connecting through a secure VPN, and tried to access this mysterious server. Late at night, Jonathan sat in the dark in front of his screen, trying to bypass all the defenses he could imagine. The deeper he delved into the network, the more he realized he had stumbled upon something far more significant than just a hacker intrusion. This was something deeper, something that could change the way people thought about freedom of speech and democracy in the country. He discovered that the server was linked to a shadowy organization behind several media platforms in the U.S. Their goal was to insert fake news and manipulate public opinion through controlled content. Jonathan understood that such a level of media control couldn't be the work of a single group. There was big money and political influence involved. One evening, as Jonathan worked on the next step in his investigation, his computer suddenly restarted, and a warning appeared on the screen: "You've crossed the line. Stop this." Final warning. Instead of scaring him, this message only fueled Jonathan's determination. He knew he was being watched, but he was convinced, if not him, then no one else would be able to expose this network. He made backups of all his findings and hid them in several secure locations. Then, he reached out to a journalist he trusted and shared everything he had discovered. The journalist was stunned. He realized this story could be the biggest scoop of the decade, but he also knew how dangerous it would be to investigate. They agreed to meet in a quiet cafe on the outskirts of the city to discuss their next steps. At the meeting, Jonathan handed over part of his findings to the journalist and warned him about the possible risks. They decided to proceed cautiously, gathering as much evidence as possible before going public. But the very next morning, Jonathan was awakened by loud knocks on his door. It was the police with a search warrant. They informed him that he was suspected of unauthorized access to government secrets. Though Jonathan knew it was a setup, he also realized the situation had just become even more dangerous. As the police searched his apartment, he managed to contact the journalist and say only one thing: "Move fast, or they'll destroy us." The journalist dived into the investigation with renewed determination. Over the next few weeks, he gathered evidence confirming Jonathan's story and began preparing the material for publication. He reached out to several independent outlets to ensure the story would go live even if someone tried to stop it. A month after Jonathan's arrest, when most people had already forgotten about the incident, a sensational headline appeared on the front pages of major newspapers: "The media scandal of the century. How a powerful shadow organization controlled the news in the U.S." The public outcry was immense. Politicians, journalists, and ordinary citizens were all shocked by the scale of the interference. Jonathan, who was still in custody, became a hero to many who believed he had sacrificed his freedom for the truth. This story didn't end with a single report. It sparked widespread investigations into media and cybersecurity, forcing the U.S. government to rethink its policies on free speech and media control. Jonathan was eventually released, but he never returned to his old job. He became a symbol of the fight for truth in the digital age.